All right, friends, we're going to do our annual video at the Jackson County Fair here in Indiana. So we're going to get started right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Ross the Oliver Man, and every year at the fair we do a feature, and this year's feature is Allis Chalmers. So we'll take a look at these and then some of the other tractors, and then we will probably do a second video with gas engines and stuff when that's running. So anyway, we'll start up here. The feature area is pretty full. I haven't even counted how many tractors there are, but we have, starting with this B1 Allis Chalmers garden tractor, which was of course made by Simplicity. I have a 725 Simplicity, which is the orange version of this. So that one all the way to the 210 are owned by the folks who were the Allis Chalmers dealer here in town that I used to work for. So anyway, they brought 5 or 6 of them here. So starting with the B1, then we go on to this CA, which I believe actually belongs to Dirk at Mama Bear's Homestead and More, but it lives over with the rest of these guys. So but yeah, he had that fixed up several years back. It is a CA, not a C like what I have. And the biggest difference, I think, is that the CA had a hand clutch. So, you know, you could stop the ground travel and keep the PTO going. And then also it has this platform, which the C does not have. And the seat is different also. If you remember on the seat is just like a square bench seat type deal. So quite a few improvements on it, from the C to the CA. Also the snap coupler, that's another feature that they have on the CA. This one's got the side weight. That's probably pretty hard to find. I don't know. I would imagine that a lot of those probably got scrapped because people didn't really, you know, have a use for them after they took them off the tractor and then sold the tractor. So pretty neat. CA. Then we have a D15 Series 2, but I'm not sure that that's really what that is, because I was thinking that when they fixed it up, maybe that they could only get Series 2 decals. I'm not sure on that. That's an Allis Chalmers person question, if you can tell the difference between a Series 2 or whatever came later. I don't know. But I know they did a lot of work to this one. They use them all the time too. They you know, brought them back to life and then use them on the farm. So they you know, they have a few battle scars from that, but hey, it's better to use them than to let them sit. But the point of my story here was, when they got this one, it was in rough shape too, and they had to do a lot of work on the block to get it to run. And I think that's how they got it bought, because whoever owned it didn't want to spend the money to fix it and then whatever. So there you go. But that tractor's been totally gone through, and then they've been using it all the time. It's a handy little tractor. I've drove it before. It's a handy little size, fun to drive, I guess, is the moral of the story there. Then we go on to D17 Series 3, but it has Series 4 hydraulics because they added that on. So the Series 4 D17 had a hydraulic pump driven off the belt pulley, or where the belt pulley would be, and then remote valves, you know, like here and whatnot. And because your regular hydraulic system was just up here with this deal, and so to run their hay bine, they needed more remote outlets, so they got the Series 4 hydraulics and put on it, and now they can pull their hay bine with it. It's almost exactly like my hay bine, except theirs has a hydraulic tongue. So, and that tractor actually was bought new by their family, you know, the grandpa, or I should say the It'd be like the dad of the guy who was the dealer bought this new from his son, as far as I'm aware. So this one they've always had. So it's been around their place for a long time. And it's another one that I like to drive. I drove it before. When I worked there, we did stuff, you know, they made hay and we moved tractors back and forth. And yeah, it's handy size. It's actually the same as like Dad's 175 basically, because a 175 is just a D17 with square sheet metal. So, you know, from there back is pretty well identical. If you watched any of the videos where I worked on that one, you can kind of see that when you're looking at the way this is laid out. The only difference is the 175 has 3-point, whereas this still had the snap coupler. So yeah, D17. Here we have their 190 XT, another tractor that they had to, I don't remember, they got it from somebody and it had issues, and then they got it running and fixed it all up, and they use it, they round bale with it a bunch. So 190 XT with the bar grill. The early ones had that, later ones had a little bit different style grill. And then a 190 has slope fenders instead of like a 200 would not have that. PTO on this one is earlier style, I guess, where you pull up to run the PTO. They had several different variations of PTO engagement levers on 190s and 200s, and they changed this over and put 38-inch on it, and I like the way that looks. It sits up higher. The thing is, they changed the axle size on earlier 190s to the later 190s and 200. They changed the axle to a bigger size because they were having trouble with axles breaking and things, because basically the early 190s were kind of like a D17 or D19 rear end and that size axle and things. So more history changes over time, but anyway, that tractor gets a lot of use, and yeah, they bale with it all the time. I like the steps that they found. I don't know what those are off of, but that makes it nice to get on. So yeah, the factory steps were just like a flat thing that came out here. I'm sure we'll see some on other tractors as we go down the line. Next we have their 210, which is a pretty good original tractor, and very straight. The only little, it's got this little dent in it here, but other than that, it is pretty solid, pretty straight. As far as I know, they didn't get it that long ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Found it in a barn and got it running, drove it home. Have been messing with it, and you know, the Allis guy, he's got a channel. That would be the grandson of this crew there, and they have I don't know, he drives it all the time. You've seen it in his videos. He drives it like his car, drives it to town and different things. So it's got hydraulic PTO engagement, but a pretty big horse in its day. I don't think there was a lot of difference between this and a 220 in the grand scheme of things. The biggest thing would be, if you look at them, the grill on these is basically the same as the 190 grill, and they added a filler piece to it at the bottom, whereas the 220 is cast iron, this whole front section. And so that's pretty well the only major noticeable difference, I think. I don't think that they were much different in horsepower or whatever, but somebody said you could buy one of these so much cheaper than the other one, so I don't know. But the only bad thing about these is they do not have a shift on the go of any kind. They are gear to gear only, so you have to stop to put it in high or low and then go on your way. So they look cool. I mean, I'd like to have one like a 220 or a 210, but yeah, I'd say that's probably why guys traded them off, because when stuff came out with power shift and things, hey, that was super handy. So, but that is a super nice original tractor, and I'm sure if you watch his channel, the Allis guy, you can see it in action. Here we have another local tractor that has been in the same family since it was new. This tractor's been I don't know, he went tractor pulling with it for over the years and stuff, and it's just, yeah, it's got a lot of local history. Been around. There you can see the original style step pretty high up there. They added a second one, so that makes it a little bit better to climb up there. But yeah, same family that has owned it since new still owns this one today. They actually own the next couple tractors behind me too, but anyway, this is a 190 XT. You can see the differences and things. It's still got the bar grill like that one over there. But yeah, it's been around. It's been around, friends. We'll go here and look at we've got a 70-45 and a 70-60. One brother owns one and another brother owns the other one. So anyway, and then that was the dad's tractor. But we've got a very nice 70-45. I'm not sure the overlap of this, like between these and the 8000 series, but 70-45 they would have made probably kind of into the 8000 series, I think, because it was kind of like a transitional model, an updated 70-40. And you know, by this time they all had black bellies, so then you have the flat front cab instead of the cab that would stick out like that, if you know what I'm talking about. We don't have any maroon belly ones here, or I could point that out, but anyway, it's got the T-handle shifter. I always thought that was cool, but it can be hard to keep an adjustment as it gets worn. So you had, I think, what is it, 5 speeds on the T-handle. You have a high and low on the range stick, high, low, and park, and then you have 2 buttons on the floor, high and low. So you can get quite the variety of speeds with that. And of course the floor buttons you could shift on the go. So this should be a 426 motor, and a lot of those 7000 series model, like this 7000, 7010, and maybe the 7020 had the 310, but then the bigger model 7030 and 4060, they actually did make a 7050 too. 7080 had the 426 just turned up more and more in each model. But that's a pretty nice original tractor, and I don't know how long he's had it, but they've had it for a long time. So 70-45. Then we have the 70-60 with duals, and he bought that. He was telling the other day, I think when he was in high school, he bought this. The guy had it. It was at a parked along a store down in Scottsburg, and he kind of went back and forth on it and finally bought it. So 70-60. It's also got the T-handle shifter, same type of setup, high and low, buttons on the floor. He said he was bush hogging with it the other day, unhooked the bush hog and brought it here, and it's hard to believe because it's so clean. It is a very, very nice tractor for a 7000 series, and not a lot of rot. A lot of these 7000 series, the cabs retained trash and stuff and then started to rot it out, so they take care of their stuff, and they kept her clean. And yeah, this one's got the stadium lights. I guess the other one did too. I think that was an option. I thought that came on all of the black bellies, but I don't think so. I think that was an option. You got stadium lights, the mirrors, and I don't know, I think there was something else in that package when you ordered that. But stadium lights just being front and back light bars up top, and then yeah, your standard would just be the lights you had down below. So they're still, these are nice tractors to drive. You know, it's kind of hard to get maybe in the door, but not as bad as some of them. I mean, some cab tractors are quite the struggle to squeeze through, but they have quite a bit of room to get in these cabs. So still very pleasant to use today. Here we have Tough Enough. This is a Mama Bear's Homestead and More tractor. You've seen it on his channel before. He got it from his uncle, and he got it from somebody else around here, and we don't really know where who is responsible for the Tough Enough, but we think that this probably came from an equipment trader, and so hard to say who was the one who put that sticker on there. But it is a 190 gas. So take a look, friends. We got bar grill, we got gas engine, which I think is kind of unusual to see around these parts nowadays, because most of them either got diesels put in them, or they just got rid of them and got one that had a diesel, and you just don't see gas ones come around very often. I wouldn't mind to have a nice original gas one if I could find one. You can see there again, smaller axles, because this basically was like a D19 rear end when they started, I believe. One thing that I thought was interesting, and I guess we can transition into over here, is another 190 gas right beside it, which is very unusual to see one, but then you see two side by side. And this one, somebody's put on the later style fenders. Those might actually be like 180 fenders, I'm not sure, because the 190 would have the sloped ones like over there. But one thing I noticed looking at these two side by side is that they have electric fuel gauge, and that is kind of interesting. If you see what I'm talking about, electric fuel gauge there, and a sending unit in the tank, because Dad's 200 has a manual fuel gauge. Let's see if this, no, that one's got the sending unit type 2. So I don't know if that proved troublesome, and then by the 200 they switched back to a manual fuel gauge. But yeah, like on Dad's in here in the fuel tank, you have a square gauge that it's actually all in there, and the float's made on it and everything, and you drop it in there as one. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know the ins and outs of that, or when they might have switched that, but that's the kind of things you learn when you see more than one side by side, like here at the fair. That's why I like to look at all these, because you just never know what you'll learn, like that little bit of history stuff. So pretty cool. Two 190 gas side by side. Here we have a 220, which would have been the big horse of the day. It replaced the D21, and we can look around at that. It's got hydraulic PTO as well, engagement. Here you can see the front end difference. This is all cast, so one piece, whereas the other one was you know, like the 190 tin grill made longer to fit. But that is a 220 426 engine, again gear to gear, high and low. So yeah, pretty cool. I don't know what type of fuel gauge it has. It might have the mechanical kind. Yes, it does. So there's what I'm talking about. Sits in the tank, and it tells you the fuel level. You just got to turn around and look behind you. So figure that out. 190s maybe had the gauge until the very late ones, and then the 200 series they went to this style gauge. I don't know. Pretty interesting. Somebody told me they knew of a 190 with a propane 190, which I have never seen one. So I have to keep my eyes open and see if I ever run across one of those, because that would be kind of odd, because the fuel tank is so much of the tractor on these, like the seat mounts to it. So I'm not sure how that would work, but yeah, interesting. 220. Here we have a WD-45, I believe, and this is owned by the same guy who owns this 220. and I think he got this from his uncle, maybe he said, and the motor was really bad, so he put a D17 motor in, which is basically the same thing with the exception of there is a fuel pump mounting right here that you don't need, because on a WD-45 you don't need a fuel pump. That motor probably came out of a combine, and that's why the fuel pump thing. But anyway, I was very impressed with this tractor the other day when he was running it around here, moving his stuff in the display area, and it runs super smooth. It is probably the quietest running WD I have ever been around, and I would say part of that is he's put like a muffler or a manifold off a 170, and then the muffler off a 170. He would have had to enlarge this hood hole a little bit, and I don't know, I was just impressed. It was just a sweet running tractor, very quiet and smooth, and he's got that add-on power steering, and it just, I don't know, it was just such a nice running tractor. As far as WDs go, I mean, I was very impressed, and easy to drive. He said it was very, very bad, the back wheels, which most of them are when you run across them because of the fluid. So he had to replace both back wheels, and one of the wheel centers was bad enough that he actually had to replace it because it had gotten corroded so bad that it wasn't really usable. So anyway, pretty cool. I mean, and then it came from his uncle. We were looking at this the other day, another guy and I. It's got a dipstick on the power steering, and I've never seen that done before. So I need to ask him whether he put that on or how that came to be, because that's kind of interesting that it has a dipstick for the fluid level, because you know, it's just got that round canister down in there like you see off of, you know, that was the thing of the day, that Charlene add-on power steering. The factory power, you could get a WD-45 with factory power steering, but it was a lot larger. You know, there might be one out here that we can see, but it was made a little bit differently, and then your linkages and stuff were different to go around it. But anyway, this is a very nice running tractor, and I like it. We'll jump over here. This tractor belongs to the CT Farm boy, so if you look up his channel, CT Farms, this is a tractor that was, I think, owned by his grandpa, and then he bought it back several years ago. It was probably his great-grandpa who bought it. Maybe he can do a video and tell the history on that, because I'm not up on all that. But this is just the way it was, factory loader. It's got the Charlene add-on steering and wide front end, 4-bolt wide front end, which that one does too. I think the early one, I'm not really sure on that, but I know that there was an early version of this that had somehow 3 bolts, and I don't know how that would be. Somebody said it was like a diamond shaped thing, so I don't know. But that is a factory wide front end for a WD-45, and it's got the loader on it still, all original, so pretty interesting. Here we have a WD, which I believe that one of the ways you can tell a WD from a WD-45 is straight shifter versus curve shifter, and then also the block has this big plate on it here. So like Dad's tractor, I think, is a WD with a WD-45 engine in it, but at any rate, they were very close in the way they're made, just slight differences as things were updated. But that is a WD in its work clothes, all original. I don't know whose this is even. Was there a sign on it and I didn't pay attention? Yeah, okay, so it comes from town here. Then we have this WD-45 wide front. You can see there's no plate on the engine, and it has a curve shifter. It's got wheel weights on it, wide front end, 4-bolt wide front end. 1954. I thought that might be a later one, but I think somebody told me they made them up till like 58, 59. I don't know. WD-45, that was a long run. So, anywho's, this has got the factory style muffler in that versus what was over there. You can see Allis Chalmers used this. It like slips down on there and then it's retained. It's got a tab made on the muffler and then it bolts down. And that's how that was. So there you go. Snap coupler. There was a lot of these around in their day. A lot. Over here we have a very nice original 200. This came from my neighborhood. It actually belongs to my cousins who work for the deer. All right, here we go. GoPro got too hot. It heard the word deer and it shut right off. But anyway, this belongs to my cousin. He got it from his uncle. It used to have a cab on it. They took that off. I like it better with the factory flat top fenders. And yeah, I'd like to buy that one of Dad's and do this to it and then use it for stuff. But this is a late 200, and the only difference really between the early and the late was like Dad's has the 190 style hand clutch where you push down with the ball, and then these later ones had this notch system where you put it in there. The only problem is when it started to get wore, it was hard to keep an adjustment. I actually prefer the older style better, but I was always told they only did that in 1972. So I don't know about that, but that's how she was. 38-inch rubber. Also a late style one, have this door. Although somebody told me he had seen a 190 with that door, so I don't know if that was an option, but as far as I know, that was only on late 200s, so that you could get the air filter out easy out of the side. But 301 motor. It's got the grill's a little different than a 190, you see, with the way they did the screen and stuff. But basically it's the identical same tractor as a 190 XT, like there. I don't know, I like this body style of these tractors. They sit up high. This one's got the hydraulic PTO. That was an option. If you had the manual PTO, the lever came up through the hole here. But worked on a lot of these over the years. There was a bunch of these around, 200s, 190 XTs, and yeah, I like that body style tractor. What to say, I don't know. One thing I did notice here that I never noticed before is that the XTs, 190 XT and the 200s, the way the sheet metal's made, it comes up and then it's just the hood open, whereas like on the early 190s it had a panel that was all one piece. And you see how that's made different. So they made that all one piece, and then this is square, and on the later ones they made this one piece and that one piece, and then I don't know, a lot of these 200s and XT series 3s and stuff you see are missing the back panels because people just took them off and never put them back on. But anyway, that's a pretty nice old tractor, and they use it all the time too. I think they round bale with it. So there you go. Here we have a unstyled WC. This tractor's been to the fair a bunch over the years. This family was into tractor pulling and big into Allis Chalmers, and they were very creative with stuff that they could do, making modifications and things. Like this one, he's made him they have put the later bell housing in, so it's electric start, made a console with gauges in it, and you know, did all the stuff because the WC wouldn't have had that. So pretty neat when you get to looking at some of these old tractors and see how they did what they did. This one actually has foot brakes, which WCs all had hand brakes, but I know there was a kit you could buy to do it. But I would say that they probably custom fabbed this, knowing them, and they made it. They made their own kit to put foot brakes on a WC. And there's other WCs here that we can see so that you know what I'm talking about. But that's a pretty neat tractor, and like I said, They did a lot of tractor pulling back in their day. This is another one of his tractors, 190. It's on 34-inch rubber, so there you have it. But it's basically the same as a 200 or whatever, early style hand clutch here, like what you'd find on all 190s. That has, I just like that because it has more positive engagement when you put it where you want it, it stays. And then they did some paint mods here, you know, painted some parts cream, which that was a common thing back in the day for guys to, you know, dress up their tractor, do a little custom paint work and stuff. So that's another one of his in a minute we'll look at. But 190 XT Series 3, hydraulic PTO. It's got the electric fuel gauge in it. So again, I don't know if that was maybe a switch they made in the 200 series or what, but yeah, 190 XT Series 3. Here we have a D17 Series 4, it says, but I don't know if I believe the Series 4 because it doesn't have the Series 4 hydraulics. It only has the early hydraulics, but sometimes the stickers are hard to get the right version of stickers. I see they've been seeding with it. Brought it straight from home. I don't know whose tractor this is actually, but it looks pretty well kept. And nice little D17. Like I said, it's a handy size. I like a D17. I don't know. Got the cedar on, snap coupler. It's got, the D17's had a fuel gauge like what they put back in the 200s later, you know. So they had that idea early on, and then they went away from it, like in the 190, and then I guess it proved troublesome, so they went back to that idea. But yeah, D17, that is probably a Series 3, could be a Series 2, I don't know. Series 1 would be different because they had like an oval decal that would have said D17 in it, and the grill was a little different, so you can always tell a 1, but when you get past that, I'm not sure. It's got an oval muffler, so that would be, it's probably a Series 3, but anyway, doesn't really matter. It's their tractor and they love it. Here is a 190 XT. They were big on the console, you know, that was a big feature of the 190, having this console with your throttle. I kind of like that. That is handy. You got your throttle on your right hand side there. But we got our bar grill in this, and they got the early ones had that lettering in there like that. It's got the one-piece panel on it, so that would be an XT and not a Series 3 like the other one, you know. And that also comes from, I see they had a tractor down there further, so it comes from around here. Yep, 190. Hydraulic PTO on this one, so that was an option. Slope fenders, 34-inch tires, 190 XT. Here we have another one of my cousins, D17. Their dad bought it new and farmed with it, and then it got traded away. They found it back a couple years ago. They got it running and fixed it up, and here it is today. They've taken it in some parades, and yeah, it there you go. 1962, purchased for $2,000, and then bought it, another guy local here bought it at the auction for $2,500, and then they bought it back for $1,500 here a few years ago. So it's good when it goes back to the family, you know. That's kind of neat. So anyway, they've been having fun with it, and that is super cool because yeah, it doesn't do any good for a tractor to just sit. It's better. That's neat. They got the old guy's signature and they made it into a decal and put it on there. I think that's pretty neat. Over here we have a WD-45 wide front end. Is it a It is the 3-bolt wide front end, so there you can see one, how that works. It's like a triangle diamond shaped piece there, different mounting holes. So actually the whole works here would have had to been different because of the way they mount. This one has the factory power steering. You can see how much larger it is in there than the Charlene style, where you just cut the shaft, and it's got a pump up in there, I believe. How they got it all in there, but 1956, so that would be a later variety. But factory power steering, WD, wide front, snap coupler, pretty fancy. Over here we have another local tractor. It was the old guy pulled this in tractor pulls way back when they first started around here, and then it got sold. Another friend of mine bought it, he fixed it up, and then the original family bought it back several years ago, so it's back in its home. You can see the difference in color, the early Persian orange versus a lot of guys now, when they've repainted them, put them back to the corporate orange like the later ones. But the earlier Persian orange was a little bit different color. And anyway, WD-45, a lot of miles or acres or whatever you want to say put on this tractor here, and tractor pulling on the whole 9 yards. So pretty nice, and it's good that they got it back so they can enjoy it. Here we have a Series 4 D17, which this one is really a Series 4. It's got the hydraulics on it like this, and then the remotes over here, and they didn't have anything on this side. So that is a true Series 4 D17, and basically it is totally identical. Anyway, we're getting too hot again, but it is basically the same identically as a 170, 175, other than different sheet metal. But a Series 4 D17 and a 175, same thing. You can see the console there with the stuff just like the one on Dad's, basically. I mean, D17 Series 4 and a 170s or 175 are basically the same tractor underneath. So there you go, fixed up pretty nice, and you just don't hardly see a Series 4 as often, I don't think, as you do the others. So that's pretty handy. Here we have a CA with the, I believe it's a Thompson high crop conversion, so that's pretty neat. They would, I guess, ship them to Thompson, or Thompson would get them, and then they put that different wheel and center on there, and then took the axle. I got to looking at this the other day. It's kind of neat how they did that. They made the upper part, and then they used the spindle, or the what do you want to call it, the knee, I guess you'd call it, off of the factory axle, and then just made it work. So that's kind of neat. I guess they actually used the whole axle. This is the tube where those would have been in, but then they plugged the end of it, probably slid in a solid bar so that they had some more clamping surface, and then made it into a high crop. So that's kind of cool. You see these around every so often. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's a Thompson high crop conversion. There it is, it does say it, Thompson Manufacturing. So pretty cool. I don't know what they would have been used for, but what was any high crop used for, you know? Cultivating tobacco or vegetables. So pretty cool little tractor. Here we have a WD-45. It's got the light wide front 4-bolt, and it's got basically loaded with options, you know? It's spin outs, wheel weights. Does it have power steering? Yes, it has factory power steering. And he's got a little snap coupler planter on there, which I think is cool. I like implements, and you hardly ever see implements at a show, but he takes it to several shows around, so you maybe have seen it at other fairs or whatever. But little snap coupler planter, I mean, look at how it mounts on there. It actually, looking at it, I didn't realize it mounts to the drawbar. I thought that it was maybe its own, had its own snap coupler thing on there, but it actually mounts to the drawbar and then picks up and whatever. And maybe there were different variations of that hitch, I don't know. But anyway, pretty cool. Pretty cool. Snap coupler planer, WD-45. Here we have an unstyled WC, which you've seen in my videos before when I went out to the guy's house and we took a tour of his stuff. It's a 1937 WC. He has added the bell housing section from a later styled WC so that he could have electric start, and then added a battery box and accordingly stuff. Took the ignition box here, you want to say, or the little gauge cluster box off of like a B or a C to mount his switch and stuff in. WC handbrakes, like we talked about earlier. They only had handbrakes from the factory, and then, you know, some places made kits to change them over. But, and another thing would be the manifold. It came out 45 degrees and he's adapted it to go up, so that works. Some of them, like this one, is also his later one. Sometimes you see guys have gotten the later manifold and then they'll adapt those where it goes through the hood. But anyway, that is a WC the way it would have been, except in wartime, because this one actually has, interestingly enough, this is a styled WC, but since it was right during wartime, this is a 46, so it would have been towards the end of the war, after the war was over, but they were probably still making stuff using wartime things. This actually has a Studebaker rear axle that's made out of steel instead of the cast, and you can see that it's got the spring hangers for like when it was mounted in a truck. So I guess that's what they could get, so they had to use it if they wanted to keep making tractors. So they got that, and then they adapted it to where it would fit on the final drives there for the WC. So wartime axle, if you see one that way, they did make some that way from, you know, surplus parts. You can see where they had to weld on so that they could have a place to bolt to it, but they made her work. And this is another one that probably was, I don't know if this one would have had electric start, but he has added again the little cluster like off a B or C to have a place to put his gauge and things. And then I think he told me that somebody else had done some of that beforehand, and this battery box was already welded to the frame, so he just left it because it was on there and that works. But he's taken both of these on tractor drives, and I don't know, good running tractors, so pretty cool. WC's also had this long shifter like this and the little deal to, you have to flip that to be able to get it in reverse, I guess. And yeah, different style seats. It's got the backrest on both of them. Pretty neat, pretty neat. Here we have another 190 XT Series 3, and you can see back in the day they did some tractor pulling, and it looks like they had a narrow front on it. If that is indeed this exact tractor, I would assume that it was, or they had several of them, so who knows. But anyway, 190 XT Series 3. This one's got the manual engaged PTO lever, comes up to the floor. He said that several years ago he was driving this tractor down the road and the camshaft broke, and he said it was like it just quit right now. And they tore the motor down, found out the camshaft was broke, and you know, so he fixed that all up, and here it is again. So yeah, XT Series 3, we've seen several of them around, and I like that body style tractor very much, like a 200. It's got a little bit different centers. I thought maybe those came off of like a D21 or something, I don't know, with this larger, it's got a lot of clamps on it is what I'm saying, and I don't think that the 200 wheel had that many clamps, or I don't know, you never know. The tractors, I mean, they're getting 50, 60 years old. Some of them are even older, 70 years old or more. So there's things that could be changed on them by now that you can't use these at a show as a guide for everything they exactly made, because things could have been changed by now. But anyway, as I was saying before the GoPro shut off, this is a pretty good selection of things that they made, a good variety of models. So it was good to see this many turn out, because you know, you get to see a lot of things that you maybe don't see side by side, so that's pretty cool. So we will now go over and check out some of the other tractors that are not in the feature area, and we will see what we can come up with there. Would you like, you don't want to be on camera? You want to be the star of the show?
Sure.
Okay, well,
I'm an Oliver guy.
he's the guy that I got the 2255 from, so yeah. Maybe he'll find more for me to buy one of these days, I don't know. All right, we will go over here. We'll probably have to take a break because the camera keeps getting too hot, so we'll do our best. Here's a very nice original 4020. I think the kid told me, as a kid, he's about my age, but I think he told me that his grandpa bought it new. It was originally a demonstrator tractor, and okay, it was bought by one family, and then they added the turbo and different stuff, and then this guy's grandpa bought it in 1981. And so anyway, it got sold in 2015 to a person in Ohio, and then he said he kept writing letters to this guy trying to buy it back, and then finally the guy said okay, so he ended up getting it back, I think last year, he said. So yeah, brought back to the farm in 2025. He said he had a lot of memories riding with his grandpa on this when they were farming and stuff, so that's cool that he was able to get it back. I'm also very impressed at how nice it has stayed. It is a very original tractor, and it does not have a lot of battle scars on it. I mean, it is pretty darn good shape. You look at the canopy and it doesn't have any dents in it or bends or whatever, and mine is not that way. My canopy in the 2020 has a lot of battle scars from being in the woods and stuff. I guess there's one little place on the corner there, but that is not bad at all. But very nice, original, clean tractor. It still has the sticker on it from the dealer at the time when it was sold, so that's pretty cool. It's just a very nice tractor. It's got the factory weights on it. Yeah, I was glad to see it here. This is the first time he's brought it here, but he just got it last year, I think in the fall. So yeah, it's pretty cool, but nice original 4020. We go back here. We have a little John Deere 40, and they have some John Deere 2-cylinder crawlers and stuff too, so pretty cool. I like these the little vertical twin is such a sweet runner. I mean, they had it figured out with these. I mean, so I had an MT for a while and I kind of regret selling it, but it was kind of rough shape, so we'll have to find another one of these one day, add that to the collection. But anyway, a 40 John Deere. Here we have the MCO Power Horse. I think that's a cool little tractor. Allis Chalmers B power unit, I think, and then you have where you can drive it with the reins like a horse. Pretty cool. Then we have this 9600 Ford, which they just finished up this spring. It was in that video of the show up here, but they had just got it done, and he took it out and he was bailing with it and stuff, but that was the first work it had done. But it had a cab on it when they got it, and they took that off, and they've totally gone through it, painted it, they fixed whatever stuff needed fixed on it, leaks and things like that. But it is a very beautiful tractor in person. I don't know if it shows up on camera, but very sharp tractor. Pretty neat. Just taking it all in, you know. Ford used that kind of odd shaped roll guard there that was kind of up, but then it would actually fit behind, like the cab would fit in front of it, I believe, on the ones I've seen. So it was the same thing whether it had a cab or not. But pretty cool. Pretty cool. And over here we have their four-wheel drive collection, county tractors. He said they got another one in pieces that they're working on, so maybe we'll see it one day. But this is what, an 1164, and they use it a bunch. They use them on the farm, friends. So they use this. Then we've got the Muir Hill, which is another one. Basically these tractors were Ford power units, and they, you know, company made them into these four-wheel drive tractors. They're not actually, they're not articulated, if that doesn't come through on camera. What they do is they have a steer axle, like the front axle that turns, so it's not articulated. It's just like a front wheel assist, I guess you would say, axle on them. So pretty cool. And then here's the county 754, just another size, another version of it. So pretty cool. All right, we're gonna try to continue on here. There's a lot of kids running around making noise, so we'll do the best we can. 77, which I actually owned for a while, and then it ended up that it was this guy's dad had bought it new, so we traded back years ago. I got my 88, and then he got this back, and he just recently got this done, like a year ago, if that. I don't think it was at last year's fair, I can't remember. So it's been in the last year, but it's totally been gone through. I mean, it was a rough shape. The engine had a rod that was bent in a U shape, and so basically it became a parts tractor to me. But then when I found out it was his, we sold it, you know, traded, whatever we had to do. I didn't have an 88, and he wanted his dad's tractor back, so we made that happen. But he's took it on several tractor drives, and I think they got her figured out, so that's pretty cool. We have a 77 with single front wheel. This came from an auction. I think it was an almond auction, actually, so I don't really know anything about this tractor other than that he bought it there several years ago and took it on some tractor drives before he had that done. And I just know by the end of the day, he said it was pretty tiresome driving with that single front wheel, because that's so much weight on one wheel that, yeah. But I mean, it's a very nice fixed up tractor, so definitely a good addition to his collection. So, and here we have an 88, which he just got this winter, I think. It came from down in Kentucky, and I was impressed with how I mean, it's fixed up pretty good, and it's a pretty good match to the others as far as paint goes and whatnot. So, but anyway, it was bought pretty well like you see it. Even had the fender extensions on it and whatnot. So it's got the earlier hydraulics, but with the little shorty lever bolted on. So pretty nice 88, really. And especially when you buy them and you don't have to do anything to them, that's pretty nice. Here we have an old style 88 standard. They did not make many old style 88s, and I don't know what the number is as far as standard goes, but they probably didn't make too darn many of them as standards. I know there's one in these parts that is an industrial. You've seen it before in videos, but a standard, that's got to be kind of unusual, so that's pretty neat to see. Here we have some Fords. We've got an NAA Ford, which is the same as the Jubilee. We've seen these tractors before. This guy was the Ford dealer for a while around these parts. Offset 2000 diesel. I think that's a neat little tractor. I wouldn't mind to find something like that, just because it's odd, you know. You sit off to one side. Pretty cool. We have the 800 Ford, which I'd say is basically the same tractor as the others, except these has a 5-speed transmission and probably some stuff done to the motor to make it a little bit more than what it was in like an NAA. But I would say that the sheet metal and physical size of it is probably about the same. Likewise, here we have a 740, which is a narrow front, and I'm not up on all this. Ford guys can chime in, but the number meant something. Like one number would tell you what kind of transmission it had. Like this is a 700 series tractor maybe, but the 4 meant it had a 4-speed transmission. But I don't think that plays out exactly like a 7. It wouldn't be a 750 if it had a 5-speed transmission, I don't think. So I don't know how all that works, but there is something to that numbering system. But I think this is kind of neat too, a little tricycle. I mean, you don't see them every day. You see a lot more of the standard tread Fords than you do the tricycle. So pretty neat collection of stuff here. And like I said, that little offset one is just the neatest little thing. I don't know, just different. On this side we've got some Fergusons, the Ferguson 35, which is I think that the green belly thing is supposedly unusual. I can't remember the rules on that, but I don't think they all came that way. So that's an unusual thing to see. And I'm sure it was an updated version of like the TO30 with some different features. I see it's got like a high and low transmission and what have you. Here is a TO35. And it's got a green belly with tan sheet metal. That's another thing they did for a while. And I should have bought it. I saw one of these on Marketplace, a tan, and it was very original. You could tell that that was exactly what it was because it was all original paint. And I should have probably bought it just because of the oddity of it, because you just don't see. I think these were like a transitional model between when they went to red ones and they went, you know, from Ferguson to Massey Ferguson. So very interesting, just little things you learn. And me not being an expert on all the other brands, there's always something to learn, is what I'm saying. Here we have a 44 Massey Harris, and it's another local tractor that's been here a bunch. We have actually a pretty good selection of Massey Harris here. We've got this 44, which belonged to a neighbor growing up across the road from me. They had this, and I think he even tractor pulled it for a while. That's why it's got those tires on it, chrome stack. But yep, he worked for the Cordis Hardware, which is the Massey dealer. They sold Massey and Oliver, and then later on in the mid 60s Co-op took over Oliver, so then all they had was Massey. But that's more than likely where that came from. 44 Special, another local tractor we see in different things. And again, I never did. I think somebody told me in the last video, and I never retained that knowledge, what the difference was between a special and a non-special. Maybe it was just the year, newer model. I don't know. But it's all fixed up, and he takes it to different things, places. It's a pretty slick looking tractor. See 3 of them in a row. There's one over there too, we'll look at in a minute. Here we have the 1456. This tractor this is probably about the 3rd year maybe that it's been here. They fixed it up one year just before the fair, because I know they asked, is it too late, can we still bring it? And I said no, go ahead and bring it. So 1456, pretty cool. There's a 1256 down on the other end, so we'll look at that in a minute. But very nicely fixed up. It's even got the axle mount duals, so very nice. Over here we have another 44. I don't know. Okay, I know whose it is. They had this fixed up. The guy actually passed away a couple years ago. But anyway, this tractor they had fixed up for the old guy before he died, and so then it's been here to several fairs and whatever, and now I see that it looks like it is passed on to the grandson. So that's pretty cool, because he's into farming and stuff, and that's good. I hope that it stays in the family, you know. They did a pretty good job. They had somebody fix it up and looks pretty snazzy, so very nice. let's go down here and see what's over here. I'm gonna have to change batteries pretty soon because I'm about out. Farmall Cub. This was actually fixed up and used to be owned by the guy that owned the F12 that I have, and now it has since changed hands, and here it is at the fair. So good to see that it stayed in the community and it's out and about. 60 Industrial. This tractor has been here before. It's been around. My neighbor owned it for a while and now it has a new home, but it still comes to the fair, so that's nice. You don't see many industrials around at shows. And you can see all the different features, you know, compared to a regular 60, what have you. So that's pretty cool. I see this is kind of like the 70, it looks like to me, where you have your individual foot brakes, but then this pedal over here does both brakes. And that's the way it was on a 70 all the time. But the 60 used an equalizer pedal on the row crop ones. But I guess on this you sat so low that it was easier to just have another pedal. And then the clutch is over there, obviously. So that's a pretty neat little tractor. Here is an LA John Deere, maybe. I'm not up on these. I always thought they were kind of neat too, but I don't know the difference in models. I know they made an L and an LA, and I'm pretty sure that's an LA. I have an L power unit, which is just basically the front half of this that would have come off of a combine. We need to get that out one day and play with it. But pretty cool little tractor. So, and pay attention, thieves. That's not your battery, so don't take it. Here we have a Super MTA, which is owned by the guys who own these over here, which I realize we need to get to because we kind of jumped around a little. But we've seen this before at shows, and it's very nicely fixed up. They are very good about fixing stuff up and doing it right. 450 diesel. I'm pretty sure that that is his as well, maybe. It doesn't have a sign on it though, so I can't say that for sure. I don't know about that one. Here's an MTA, Super MTA. And that belongs to another family here. But, and I don't know how many, like Super MTAs, I don't think they made a ton of. I don't know that for sure. But I don't know a lot about Farmall, so I can't tell you. But now over here, these four belong to the same guy that's got that one. And he's got three sizes, a 520, 620, and a 720. And they're all very nicely restored. So that's pretty cool to see them side by side, all the different sizes there. Of course, there is, he could keep adding to his collection if he wants someday, because I think they made a 320, 420, and then on the other end you could get up to an 820. So he's got probably the ones that you would see around these parts would be these three right here. 520, which would be this replacement for like a B. 620 would be the replacement size for like an A, and a 720 would be a replacement size for like a G. So that is pretty cool to see them all. I like the 20 series paint scheme with the little bit of yellow, and then still has the green down here. So a little different than the 30 series paint, which there's one over there we can look at here in a little bit. But very nicely restored tractors. And here is his 300 Farmall, which that was a family tractor. I was at the auction when they bought that, and it was stuck, and it had a loader on it, I believe. And anyway, they got her bought back and fixed up, and it's been, I think, to every fair since. So pretty cool. I like family tractors that stay in the family. That's neat. So yeah, we're at 4% battery, so I'll probably have to switch, but we can keep going as long as I can and then try to remember where we were. Over here we have an H Farmall, And I don't know if I know whose this is or not. I do not know. It doesn't have a sign on it. I know I've seen it before, but I don't remember whose it is. So, but it's sporting the American Pride for 250 years of America, so that's cool. Here we have a 504 in original work clothes, and I don't really know where that tractor came from, so that's pretty neat. It's got weights on it. There we go. Okay. Oh, that was a local tractor that's been around all the time. And I think I do know some of the story then now, because I know they took it somewhere to have it worked on, I think. So maybe they might have had an engine rebuild done or something. But yeah, so that's a local tractor. And it made it here to the fair, so that's pretty cool. Got new back tires on it. They used to have a pickle farm, so that's kind of unusual. I don't remember how many years they did that, but they did it for a while. Here we have an M, which is owned by the little neighbor boy. He got that from, I think, his uncle. It would have belonged to like the grandpa or great grandpa. I know he's been doing some work on the hydraulic system, but I'm pretty sure he drove this here. I was here when he brought it. So yeah, drove it here from home. Here we have a Cockshut 35. That's another tractor that's been here before, and it was a family tractor of theirs, and they were able to get it back, fixed up, whatever. So it's back where it belongs. That's pretty cool. You don't see as many of these as you do the, like, you know, 30 co-op, 40, 50, that sort of thing. So pretty cool. 1655. This belongs to some viewers of the channel. They just got this done this winter. This was a tractor that was new in their family, and then it sat for a lot of years with a rod hanging out of the block, and they got her back together. This is the one that way back when we made that video on wiring to try to help him out, because he got it pretty well all put back together, and then the wiring started smoking one day, so he bought a new wiring harness and put her back together. Looks like it would have had 7,300 some hours on it, so I know they definitely used it a lot. They said that the grandpa or whoever, he liked it. It was probably his favorite tractor, so the guy that who would have bought it knew. So anyway, that's a pretty good tractor, all fixed up. I moved it the other day to let something else in. It runs pretty good, so pretty sweet. Then this is their 1155 Massey Ferguson V8. We've seen it here before. They farm with it. Pretty cool old tractor. Any V8 diesel is pretty cool. I mean, you just don't see them around that much. Looks like this one was sold new up in Plymouth. That's way up north. So yeah, but they've had her totally stripped down and painted, and you know, they use it all the time, so that's good. Here we have some 2-cylinders that belong to my cousins. We have the 70 gas, which is a pretty sweet tractor. They basically did nothing to this other than pull it out of a barn, put new tires on it, and paint it. They got it running, and it runs great, and it's got all kinds of power. And so that's very unusual that you can get one pulled out of the shed and get by with, you know, cosmetic only. So that's pretty cool. They use this all the time. This one, 70 diesel, they saved several years ago from the scrap. Somebody was going to scrap it, and they saw it there and bought it for probably next to nothing. And they've totally went through it, and whatever, it had a bad gear in the transmission. It wouldn't go into one of the ranges, so they fixed that. But then on the way over here to the fair, it looks like the flywheel must have moved a little bit because it burnt the paint off of the shield. So they said they're going to have to pull that off and make sure it's not going to fly off going home, and then figure out, you know, what happened there again. But I would guess that the flywheel probably walked a little bit out because they had to pull that off to get the shaft out to do what they had to do there. Interestingly enough, between these two 70s, this one has the roll-o-matic, but this one does not. And I didn't realize that you could get it without. So that's kind of interesting. Did not know that, learned something. But I like a 70. A 70 is like the replacement size for a G. So that's a pretty big horse. And this one's got, being a diesel, got the pony start, which I think is cool. They had to use a 4-cylinder engine to start a 2-cylinder engine. Pretty cool. And then here's their 720. They use this all the time as well. It's got the roll-o-matic. And yeah, I don't remember quite where they got this one from, but it's getting into the series where you can actually do stuff with them, because they came with 3-point hitches and hydraulic remotes and things. So this one's got the 3-point hitch on it. But anyway, that one's got the remote wired or hooked up like I tried on the G, but on my G it doesn't want to work right. It doesn't want to go. Oh man, that reminds me of something from I missed in the viewer mail. Somebody did send me a set of those plugs to adapt the power troll to pipe thread so you could put in couplers. So I need to find out where I set those. I set those aside and then I forgot about it. So I apologize to you, viewer. I will find that box. I know where it is. I just have to get it pulled out of there, and thank you for it. Here we have a 630 that belongs to them. This is a tractor that was a basket case. I mean, they totally went through it and have made it beautiful again. I mean, yeah, everything. It's totally stripped down to nothing and put back. And so there you go. They use it too. Pretty nice tractor. You can see the difference in the styling. I was talking about earlier, the 30 series styling, all yellow, versus 20 series styling. You had a little yellow with some green still. Basically, the 20 series styling was the same sheet metal as the 70, you know, the series before. They just changed the paint scheme, whereas this is all different styling on the way it's made. The hood, the dash is sloped. Just a different sort of thing. Different body style. Basically the same tractor underneath, but different body style. Now we gotta get back around to the front because I fenced myself out here. But we'll go back down here. We have the Super M Farmall. That is a tractor that I believe was in their family as well. And here it is. It's all slicked up, looking pretty snazzy. Here we have a 1955, and it's, I don't know if he fixed it up or he bought it this way. I can't remember. He actually had a 1955 with a Cummins conversion, and I went and worked on it once, and I don't think it was ever on film, but that tractor was pretty rough. It was like somebody took a tractor that had been abandoned in the woods for years and put a Cummins in and then sold it, and then that guy bought it. Well, that tractor had a lot of issues. Like, he'd drive it down the road and it would just randomly steer off to one side or the other, and the steering would lock up, and I took that column apart and it was so awful. It was the worst I'd ever messed with. So anyway, he eventually ended up selling it. He sold it, and he probably got pretty good money because people love Cummins conversions. So he sold it, and then he wished he hadn't sold it, so then he bought this one back, but it's got the factory Waukesha engine in it. And yeah, pretty sweet. I like a 55 series Oliver, you know. They're pretty nice to drive and whatever. So yeah, here we have my 2255. It made it. Drove right here. You've seen it before, and you'll see a lot more of it coming up, so we don't need to waste a lot of time looking at it here. You'll get to see it up close and personal in many videos ahead. but it sailed right down the road here. Coming down the big hill to the fairgrounds, the thing has enough power, it didn't even try to speed up going down the hill, it just maintained its speed, so that was kind of interesting. Here we have the 1255 cockshut front wheel assist, we've seen before, so you've seen that in many videos before. There's still a lot of things we can do to it, but it's here at the fair and that's pretty cool. We have the VAC case. You just saw that in the video. Don't know much more to say about that. All these tractors got rained on last night pretty good, so anyway, there's puddles of water on them in places. Here's another one you've just seen in upcoming or in videos in the last few weeks. Massey Ferguson 50. It made it here. Likewise, the 77 wide front, which this is one of his. I don't think it's been on YouTube much, but I totally went through that tractor. Every piece has been a part of it at some point in its life. So anyway, it's like a new one mechanically. Here is the 1850 that we just worked on, and sadly enough, on the trip down here, it developed some leaks. There's a fuel line up here that was spraying out fuel. Agco makes it, so I ordered it, so hopefully if it gets here before the end of the week, I can put it on one day and we can have a service call here at the fair. And then also from cleaning it, I guess I knocked some dirt loose that was holding back hydraulic fluid, because I'd say that line's leaking. So there's some more homework to do on that one, but we will get that done. We will get that done, friends. It made it here and it runs great, so, and our tire isn't flat, so that's always a bonus. Here is the 1955 front wheel assist. We've seen before in videos. Made it here with it. It's all shined up, looking pretty snazzy. Very nice tractor. There's a 450 Farmall. He's going to be having a plow day, so we might have to try to get in on that. I should probably, he gave me a physical paper, but I should probably take a picture of that sign so that I don't forget, because I'll forget. It's months from now, several months from now. So anyway, I got that taken care of now. There's a 1010 John Deere. I have no idea where this tractor came from. I don't know that I've ever seen it before, but that's kind of unusual to see a 1010. And it looks like it's had some love done to it over the years, paint job and new tires, and pretty neat. I like seeing stuff that we don't always see around. Then here we have the little Neighbor Boys 60. It's been, I've had a short video of it before. I sold him that disc and he disced with it, so that's pretty cool. Not much more to say about it, but anyway, over here we have an M, and I think they just got this done, or whatever they did. They did like a super clear coat over it. They like sanded it a little bit and then clear coated over it, so that's kind of an interesting look. It looks kind of like weathered but preserved at the same time, so kind of interesting. M Farmall. Here we have another M Farmall, which he said he uses it for tiling and pulling something doing tiling, and that's why he's got this lever mounted on the clutch and these wide fenders. He can sit on the fender somehow and do something. So it made it here. He said he was going to take it back home. It was just a placeholder, but then anyway, the other guy that's in charge said, nope, you got to leave it here. So here it is. So anyway, it is a sweet running tractor. I moved it down here and it fires right up. I mean, it looks rough, but it runs the best. I mean, pretty awesome the way it runs. Here we have a 1086 all fixed up. That's another tractor that was these people, it was in their family. It's actually there was that WD up there in front was one of theirs too, so they got this all fixed up, and that's pretty snazzy. And then finally down here we have a 1256 all fixed up. We've seen this before in videos. He bought it new, sold it, and then was able to buy it back years later, and then fixed it all up and put duals. Anyway, GoPro got too hot again, but it's back in its original family, and he's taking it on tractor drives and brings it to all these shows, so pretty cool. I've always said if I had to own an International, I'd like one of this body style, probably a 1206, like when they had the white fenders and the white wheel centers. I think they're pretty snazzy. But anyway, friends, I think we've got enough footage for one video here, and as usual I will do another one with the rest of the stuff, you know, in a separate video. So until next time, friends, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.